Good afternoon and welcome to the Board of Commissioners regular workshop meeting. Today is Wednesday, December 10th, 2025. It is 4 p.m. City Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Brooks,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Here.
Commissioner Tagliarini,
Here.
Commissioner McGeehan,
Here.
Commissioner Gavayi.
Here.
All are present.
Before we do public comment, I would like to ask the Commission to add 2 items under the Board of Commissioners for discussion, C being the parking garage, and D, chronic nuisance, Chapter 34, Article 7.
I'd like to add something as well, very quickly. A quick discussion about property that has become available in the Public Works building.
And that would be E.
Okay.
Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Can we also add a discussion on the parking rates in John's Pass over the holidays?
Parking rates?
Lowering the city parking. Or is that available?
I mean, I don't have an issue with that.
Okay, good.
Okay. Everyone's okay with that? All right. Public comment. Public participation is encouraged. If you are addressing the commission, step to the podium and state your name and address for the record and the organization or group you represent. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes and do not include any topic on the agenda. Public comment on agenda items will be allowed when they come up. If you would like someone at the city to follow up on a comment or question made at the meeting, you may fill out a comment card with the contact information and give it to the city manager. Comment cards are available at the back table in the commission chambers. Completing a comment card is not mandatory. Do we have any public comment?
Hi, I'm Bob Bello, 13301, Gulf Lane, Madeira Beach. I would like to suggest that the city looks at options to encourage lifting and rebuilding elevated as opposed to repairing properties on the ground. This could be done by relaxing the code primarily regarding nonconformities and setbacks, make it easier to encourage people to lift, rebuild their houses so they don't have to struggle with giving up things like covered walkways, existing decks, stairs, and the like that are not considered a part of the structure footprint. As FEMA considers those things as a part of the 50% rule, it's kind of weird to see that it doesn't also apply to our redevelopment code. I know there's been some work done with the recent amendment, but I believe there's still some more work that could be afforded to the residents. This may not be the best analogy, but when the government's looking for you and wants you to do something, they make it easier for you to do things like offering tax credits and such. Not that I'm advocating for direct financial assistance from the city, but by making the decision for people to lift, rebuild easier, it helps push people in that direction versus them having to grapple with, do they want to give up a portion of their existing structures, walkways, stairs, decks, etc., due to how the code is currently written. As reported by the staff, half the community has not done anything yet. There's still a great opportunity here. The number one goal should be to use this event as a catalyst to get as many houses off the ground as possible. So when this happens again, and it more than likely will happen again, it will be more of a non-event. The more incentive you give people to lift and rebuild versus a standard repair on the ground is better in my opinion. By so giving people more time to vet out their options, it helps them in the community. What I'm advocating for is maybe something along the same concept applying to residential rebuilds as you do for like a planned development agreement. In a planned development agreement, the city approves things that would normally not be approved in a variance, as it is to the benefit of the city and the community. You have this process for developers, but not for residents. Well, I would offer up that getting as many houses lifted up as possible, relaxing some of the constraints, preventing some of the homeowners is to the benefit of the city and the community. I think a good illustration of the benefit that this would be to provide to the city is to ask each commissioner 2 questions if it's not too intrusive. 1, was your residence elevated or on the ground? 2, were the damages you suffered more along the lines of an inconvenience, or was it a major life-altering event such as you've been displaced for a long period of time? I would imagine those that were impacted much less were those that were on the ground, were those that were elevated than on the ground, which is why I would say that it would be beneficial for the city to use this event in any ways they can to incentivize as many people as possible to either lift or rebuild elevating. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comment?
Hello, Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Captain Dylan Hubbard from Hubbard's Marina. One of the items I wanted to talk about was the parking garage, so I will strike that from my comment. But I did want to come up today and speak about the jetty situation. I know you guys are going to be talking about the outcome of those public meetings, and one thing that I think I feel should be emphasized to you all is the importance, the tourism importance, and the impact to visitors and locals alike of that jetty. That jetty walkway is something that is special, that's a part of Madeira Beach's history, and is super important to our community. And I know at those public meetings, the first one had a strong sentiment for doing something to replace the jetty, and that's because I was able to attend that one. The second one wasn't as strong of a sentiment because there was no real strong opinions there. But then when asked, like, hey, it's going to cost this much and I have to have sidewalk or railings around it, then the sentiment was like, yeah, might as well leave it how it is. So I feel like, yes, there was an overall sentiment in the first one, hey, rebuild it. And the second one was kind of like, we're okay with leaving it how it is. But if you put it into context of the conversation, the second one didn't have a strong opinion. And when encouraged, like, hey, it's going to have railings and it's going to cost this much money, then they were kind of like, yeah, okay, leave it how it is. But I feel very strongly that overall community opinion would support restructuring, rebuilding that jetty with a walkway. It is huge for tourists. It is huge for locals. It is huge for handicap accessible fishing. And our fishery, our region, our city is known for fishing. We're a fishing community, right? That's where our roots came from. So I think we really, really need to take a hard look at re-establishing that jetty walkway to the best of our ability, whatever that might look like. Also, I wanted to thank you all for the opportunity that you afforded us at the last commission meeting by allowing staff to have that meeting and follow-up meeting with us about the Johns Pass Committee. We had a really good meeting, and I look forward to what's to come. And I appreciate the commissioners and the mayor that were able to attend our last meeting in Johns Pass, and very happy to see the momentum and the forward momentum we have establishing that Johns Pass Committee. And then also, while I'm thanking you all, I wanted to add the dredge situation. Just met with Bay News 9. They're doing a story about the positive step forward and how we're nearing the finish line on this very long project. And I want to thank you all for your help, and then also for putting someone like Megan involved and in charge. I feel like we're in really good hands and really making some quick progress compared to where we were just a year ago. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comment? With no additional public comment, we will move.
There's one more. Come on.
Hello to anyone. So this is Adrian Turco. I'm from Romania, and we are like a coffee shop developer. So we are just waiting for everything. I mean, from the public project that I know that you have right here. So I'm waiting for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I elaborate on that just a little bit?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Adrian, they're a wonderful company out of Romania, and they're extremely good in coffee and coffee shops and little restaurants, things in that nature. So we're doing some projects for them, and I was so impressed with their work and their abilities. So I asked him to come here and make a quick presentation to this board for any possibility that in the future, if we ever decide to put a coffee shop on the project we just bought, and if whenever that may be, these folks will be extremely interested.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hush.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Board of Commissioners, results of the outcome of the 2 town hall meetings regarding the newly acquired property. City Manager?
Mayor and Commission, what you have is, or in the agenda packet is the result, or are the results from the first town hall on that Saturday, the second town hall that Wednesday evening, and then the opinions from the Daiquiri Shack conversations with the mayor. There's plenty of suggestions for everybody to sift through, so with that, I'll turn it over to the board.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners?
I was impressed at the creativity of our residents and the optimism and enthusiasm with which they shared their ideas.
If you go down to page 9 in the in your packet, it has it broken down into categories such as beautification, buildings, events, marina, miscellaneous, parking, and parks, and shopping district. So you can kind of see how everything's categorized. Like in the park, green space received 7 suggestions. And marina docks received 7 suggestions. I believe those 2 were the most for anything. But everybody kind of had the same goals, whether it was worded the same or not. They wanted something nice, something pretty, something beautiful, something for the community.
Thank you, Chief, for summarizing that as very helpful. As in anything we do, we're not going to make everyone happy. We can do try to make as many people happy and proud of what we design. What I guess my question is more of a question is, what are the next steps and how do we get there? I think we need to get Kimley Horn involved in the design once we have an idea of what we agree that are the most impactful for the residents, for the city, for the well, just for that, just for the city, and how it looks to tourism and how it's used and useful for both residents and for tourists.
So what we could do is, if everybody wanted to kind of weigh in, send me an email, Marcy and Megan as well. And once we have an idea of what we want, then we could go to kind of like a design, have a few different companies come out, engineering firms, and present their idea of what they think it would look like with everything that we all have agreed upon. Something along those lines. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marcy. I think that was okay.
No, I think you're correct, and I think there's some things that'll come out of the strategic planning that we discussed to start looking at everything holistically, all the property that the city owns and how we build out each of those, but definitely then reaching out to firms and letting them compete and come up with some pretty nice conceptual ideas and take it from there.
This was well put together. The meetings also was very positive in the community, and I want to thank all the residents for coming out, supporting their ideas. One of the questions I get normally is as far as revenue generating ideas with the boat slips, how many can we actually put over there? Some people would want to know exactly if we did the boat slips over there, which is a great idea, how many can we fit over there?
I think it's dependent on what we do. When we purchased the property, the previous owner provided us with all of their drawings and conceptual drawings that they had done. There was a plan development approved on that property that included boat slips. So we could look at that and count the number. However, the city might choose to do something different than what they had laid out. There's been some discussion on having charter boats and having a finger go out that the charter boats would be on. I think we need more understanding of what, not just what the community had, their input has been, and to take that and put it into something for the commission to look at. I don't know that I think 2 meetings was enough. I had 1 meeting, conversations with the mayor that was packed from the DAC Shack, and we did not discuss anything other than the property purchase. And so I believe that we probably should have another meeting. I don't think that 2 official meetings that are recorded for reviewing and then 1 conversations meeting is enough for the community. So I would recommend that we do 1 or 2 more meetings. And those meetings could be when staff runs them, focus more on what the consensus is that we've received so far and what the residents see that on a broader picture would be my thoughts and recommendation.
Mayor, I totally agree with you. I don't think we should hurry up and get to the finish line. This should be a project where we should take our time and be sure that we don't make any mistakes. I also would like to somehow have like a 10, 15, 20-year master plan for the future of all the properties together. If we can come up with some sort of a master plan to include the boatyard area as well as other properties that we have, just as an overall picture, and then phase it, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So we'll have a general overall picture of what the entrance to the city would look like. I would also incorporate some major beautification to Tom Stewart Causeway. I envision as you drive into Madera Beach, you see beautification, you see activities, waterworks, businesses. So I'm in agreement with our mayor to have a few more meetings, maybe not 1, 2, or 3, or whatever it takes to feel comfortable with what we would like to do in the long run.
Definitely.
So ideally, we want to have an idea. We will want to look for funding for the property externally. So if we spend the next 6, 8 months coming up with, taking our time, doing our due diligence with the community, understanding what the community wants, what that looks like, then we will be able to have the opportunity to look for the funding to pay for it.
Yes.
And what phases that would be in, whether you start with the boat slips, which are revenue generating, whatever that looks like. But I think that more community input's needed before we make any decisions.
Has anyone spoken with Visit St. Pete Clearwater to get any input from them as far as what they consider is needed in Pinellas County? Any suggestions? They did ask to be part of any discussion. Not specifically.
City staff has not. What we have done is we've reached out to Grant Works and our lobbyist to explore. The purchase is done. He's kind of stated that there's no real grants for reimbursement, but we can look at grants to develop it, design it, and what have you.
Right.
So we have done that part of it, I guess.
No, I agree with everything that's been brought up. I think at some point, we need to kind of come up with some different ideas of which way we're leaning to go and have those public meetings after that and get input. Either the public likes it or there's a lot of pushback one way or the other, but continue the discussion and continue to getting some ideas, but kind of start to funnel it down into a couple of different ideas and see what.
It may not also be a bad idea to ask some developers to just come up with some sort of ideas to share, what sort of business they're in, any restaurant owners that would like to move in here, so we can collect some possible future tenants It doesn't mean we have to commit ourselves to anyone, but at least collect some really high-profile business ownerships. So when the time comes, it would be easier to decide actually what we would want to be building out there.
So that, in my opinion, is kind of putting the cart before the horse. We've had 2 official meetings. Now we have a list of what people said. Take that list back to the public and have another conversation with the public. This is what we got, where the public can see, and then your discussion comes from there. When we get to the point of if a restaurant's going to be built, that's not going to be, I don't think that's what we're thinking about right now. I think right now it's about making sure the community's heard, and that whatever direction the commission is taking, that we're taking the direction that represents the community, not ourselves.
I agree with you, Mayor. I'm just saying that if we have teams that would be willing or excited to move to our city, it just having some items on the table to share with our residents to say, listen, we have all these folks and we can pick and choose. We don't have to commit ourselves to any team. We can bring those.
So one of the things I recall in the meetings was that the community was, the individuals who stood up and spoke about a restaurant, it varied. So I think I would like to hear a little bit deeper of what kind of restaurant people see there. Do they see a snack shack or a Salt Rock Grill? Do they see Island Way Grill? What is it? What does the community, that's what I'm talking about. Before we start looking, let's dig a little more and see, have another meeting or 2 to see where the community, based off of the feedback we already have, let's expand on your thoughts. This is what came, so let's expand on those and find a deeper understanding of what the community wants. Because when you look at this, there are quite a number of things that, there was 1 comment. Would there have been 10 people commented on that if they had been at the same meeting together?
In response to that, I would be hesitant to lead on a developer for a specific business before we know what specific businesses we're looking for. I'm not opposed to it.
Right.
I feel like it's too soon. We're looking at the big picture. Let's find out what do we want there, and then we'll say, okay, we're looking for this type of business. Now you guys can give us your ideas and we'll select from you. But I feel like doing it this soon may lead them on, even if it's not specifically, or legally, it would still give the impression that we're leading them on when we're not there yet. That's just my opinion about that.
So, I think we should have a couple more meetings.
2 more meetings.
At least 2 more meetings to,
Yes.
staff will love that. And so, Marcy, if we did a meeting, and Chief, when we do the next meeting, would it be possible to drive that meeting based off of the feedback we've already received, instead of just having the open free-for-all, which I love, and obviously we would still get total whatever the community wanted to input, but to kind of gear it more focused on what we've already received in comments, so that we could, drive down.
Yeah, we can definitely do that, and I was going to suggest the same thing that you did. Let's figure out what we all agree on. Let's not bring them the entire list, condense it down a little bit, then they can choose from those items on that list. If there's any new ideas, they could add them.
So, I think that staff could narrow this down, because I think that there are several, things that go together. If you look at beautification, something beautiful, complement what we have at Johns Pass, fountain, trees, landscape architecture, that's really all one idea, right? And then to be able to, beautification, is it a sign? You know what I'm saying? The planting, what is that? And get the public to kind of give that kind of input.
Yeah, like you
I can
stated, is
tell-
it a snack shack or is
Right.
it Salt Rock Grill?
I can tell you that I do not want to sit here on this commission and make the decision for what we build there. I obviously I know what is said that I like, and I felt like the community was very, very in line with my own thoughts, but I feel very strongly that we are not making the decision. We need the community to drive it. So if we can combine these things and make the list maybe shorter, and then get the community to give the input, and by list shorter, I mean, taking the comments that are basically the same and joining them together, and then let that drive the meeting, and then we can go from there. So that when we're voting on something, we're voting because the community said, this is what I want.
And I think some of the things we could do to be helpful too is one of their next meetings is going to be taking it out of the PD and putting it back to its original, to the zoning. With that, we can say, okay, we have 4+ acre site. Of that, let's just say for the discussion, 2 acres can be covered with a structure. We show what that 2 acre looks like, and then we can play with it and say, okay, do we want it closer to the seawall, further from the seawall with a walkway, and maybe start kind of honing it in and giving people a visual of how that site starts to come together with all those parts, and kind of play with it like a puzzle. Then once you kind of figure that out, then you can start backing into where the buildings are and how you start kind of building out all those different functions. But I think start visualizing what it looks like to put a building on that lot, to put a walkway, a path, and those kinds of things.
But we can do that at a staff level without having to go out and pay
Exactly.
and spend.
Exactly.
Right, okay. I like that idea. I like keeping it more in-house to start, instead of spending money. We've made it a habit over the last many years to spend a lot of money on things and then do nothing with it. So I think if we could get some conceptual things going and really have a lot of community input, and then once we have a good plan, then take it out to the professionals. So I think that's a great idea, Marcy. So then we could schedule you could schedule a couple of town halls. Any additional input?
No.
Next on the agenda is the I'm sorry.
Sorry. You want to go over the jetty part?
Oh,
But again,
it's, oh, yeah.
yeah, so
Okay,
I have
yes.
them all
Sorry about that.
right here, and the summary, I guess, was fishing access, sunset viewing, food trucks or small vendors, public art, a designated sunset point experience similar to Mallory Square. Again, fishing access must be maintained. Some advocated for restoring the walkway with improvements. Others supported leaving it in its current condition until funding and plans are defined. Interest in exploring grants, state appropriations. So those are all the suggestions from those 2 town halls.
Do we have any public comment?
Sure, I'll take the opportunity. Captain Dylan Hubbard from Hubbard's Marina. I think just one thing I wanted to add in while the conversation was going on there, I'm the chair of the Outreach and Education Technical Committee for the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council. And one of the things that we grapple with is public input. And I think that's kind of what I feel like we're grappling with here. And one thing that is super valuable and super helpful to us is we put out Google Forms to captains. So our federal for-hire fleet, the email database is there. In your case, with residents, it's a little bit more challenging, I'm sure, but there's ways that the residents could get potentially a link to a Google form, right? And the Google form could be very simply what has already been put together by staff, and that gives residents the opportunity to give you input without having to attend a town hall meeting. So I think if you do that in conjunction with a town hall meeting, you're enabling a lot of public input very easily, because people are a lot quicker to respond to an email or a QR code left on their door handle of here, give your input at this link, and fill out a quick Google form. And I think you'd get a lot more feedback from residents that way, and you could target residents that way by targeting the residents. As far as the jetty is concerned, I think really all the points there are really good ideas, but I mean, you had a walkway. That walkway was fully utilized by fishing, And then also it was heavily utilized by tourists. People walk down Johns Pass Boardwalk, that boardwalk ends, they continue underneath the bridge and out to that jetty. We see it a lot at sunset. If you walked out there at sunset, you could hardly walk down that sidewalk. It was packed with people. And also, we got to remember the wheelchair access. That was the one wheelchair accessible fishing point in our region, really. I mean, now the Skyway Fishing Pier, they're talking about tearing it down because it's falling apart and getting dilapidated, that South Skyway Pier. So these jetties, in my opinion, are supremely important. And I think we're really doing a disservice if we don't reestablish that jetty walkway. So personally, I would love to see that conversation continue, and I think there's a lot of funding opportunities. I think we could continue to explore that, and I'd be happy to help in any way I can. There's a lot of funding through the state with boat ramp access and fishing point accesses. There's multiple different nonprofits that FWC has. There's different arms of the federal government that have a bunch of funding for fishing access at points as well. So if you leaned into that and really pushed that side of it, I think there's ways that we could get funding and potentially remove that railing requirement, or at least maybe lower it a little bit, because I feel like a lot of that fishing access will help maybe alleviate some of that conversation potentially. So I would love to continue the conversation and connect the grant opportunities there, because I think there's some funding resources that could be explored. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comment? Commission?
Funding resources is the key point. So maybe we can talk to Captain Hubbard and connect with him for those opportunities, because obviously we've got to have the funds to do this. So if we can come up with the funds, I'm okay with it.
Commissioner?
I also agree. Looking at how we can fund the project, I think the jetty is a very important part of our city and tourism. Everyone loves Johns Pass and the jetty, and also getting back to making it ADA compliant, we're going to definitely have to do that. So.
The commissioners make great points. I do have some concerns about the railings with the handicap being able to fish from there. I don't know if that's, it's kind of
That's the
difficult
design.
task, I would think, given all the rocks and the distance between where that would be, an actual sidewalk from where you'd have to cast to be able to fish effectively. One of the things in my mind, do you make it wider and a little further from the rocks, a few feet further north, more for accessibility to actually view and enjoy the water and the sunset, and not so much for the actual fishing, because the fishermen that are not handicapped, I would imagine they're going to go out on the rocks anyway, because I mean I've been down there a few times, and it's as popular a fishing spot as it's ever been, as far as my experience, without the sidewalk. So there's a lot to consider. You start putting railings on there, and then you put that same exact sidewalk we had, that gets pretty restrictive. So that's just some thoughts. But again, back to the grant funding, we'd have to come up with an idea, design, and a cost, and start searching either through grant works
We
or
need
some
close
other
to
contacts.
$500,000.
Megan's going to come up and give us some input.
Hello, everyone. So I want to, with the handrails, that is a requirement by Army Corps, and that's what they refer to on the call. So When we originally talked about putting the sidewalk back in its original condition, that is all the pre-app meetings that we've already had. So if we're talking about changing the footprint of what that sidewalk is going to be, we're completely changing the original scope of where we had originally anticipated on going. But when we had that meeting with 408, it has to be ADA accessible. And being ADA accessible means to have the handrails. Just because it has handrails doesn't mean that it's all one layer. If anyone has visited the fishing pier over here at Rock Park and also the 2 fishing piers that we have over at Patriot Park, both of those have ADA handrails. So those are accessible. And yes, people do fish from the rocks, but they, unfortunately, when we put the sidewalk back, if we do, if that's the choice, it will have to have handrails. There's not any really way about that because the sand comes and goes there. So if there's any sort of a drop off over, I don't remember what that requirement is, it has to have a handrail.
Having attended both meetings, everyone's already made all the points. But I will say that there was a drastic difference in opinion from one meeting to the next. And I think Captain Hubbard illustrated that he was at one and he wasn't at the other. So that I'm sure led the way. That said, I think as we are deciding with the new property, I think this discussion needs to continue as well so that we get representative ideas along with the new property. Because I mean, personally, I have seen a lot of people, a lot of activity there. On the other hand, I love the idea of a sunset spot. I mean, I don't have super strong opinions about either one. I want for our residents to have some input in this, and more than just a couple. So I guess I would say let's continue the discussion.
I agree. Megan, do you have any, so I have 2 questions, but the first one's going to be, do you have any cost estimate to put it back the way it was with handrails?
Currently, right now, the issue that we're having is trying to get a cost associated with the permitting. So as we all know, because we've gone through the permitting with Army Corps and DEP, we don't know the length of time. So we need to definitively know what we're going to do first so that we can get a cost from our engineer for the design and the permitting cost, which could be anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000. So while we've had the pre-app meetings with everyone, including Pinellas County, and everyone except for the 408 section said that they're the only one that wants to review it, what we found is that if we give them the design plans, they're going to want to fully review it. And that could add an additional year to the process. So that's kind of one of those things where we need a clear direction on which way we're moving, and we're hoping that it's to put it back the same way that it was, because that's what we've already talked about. So until I have a clear, I haven't gone out for any type of construction costs yet, because we were trying to think of something that was a little bit more flexible than concrete because it moves, which is why we had the lawsuit from the trip and fall in the first place.
In the discussion with the community, there's been discussion about making something similar to Mallory Square, making the sidewalk wider, where it would come over into the sand. Can you speak to the pros and cons of any of that?
So when we talk about changing the original, we talk about possibly moving around or adding more structure to it if we're going to widen it. Mm-hmm. So then we're completely changing the aesthetics of the jetty, which is a federal asset, so that it requires more permitting from FDP, from Army Corps, from Section 408, and from Pinellas County. So I would highly advise that if we want to put that back, we stick with the same way that it was, which was, I believe, 8 feet wide in the first place. And then we add those handrails to it, which will be ADA accessible. There's those handrails that you see everywhere on any new fishing pier are all ADA accessible. So it is easy for someone who is in a wheelchair or, is not able to fully stand up and fish, they can do so.
Okay.
Is the point of the concrete ADA jetty, is the point more for the handicap to be able to fish, or is it more for the fishermen just without any handicap, or is it more just for enjoying I mean, as far as tourism, bringing in more tourism to go out and watch the sunset, enjoy the water, to be able to walk out. I mean, is there a general feel of the use of it?
I think it's combined all of those items. I think it's not just per fisherman, but it's also for someone who is in a wheelchair. Although we have the Moby mat out there, it doesn't go out as far as the sidewalk went out. So the sidewalk went all the way out to the end. So I don't think it's just to one group. That's kind of the feeling that
Okay.
we've gotten.
Just in my mind, if you, and I'm not making any recommendation at this point. I'm just trying to figure it out in my head. You know, if we can get the funding and go ahead and put the concrete down, is it going to be used more or not by tourism and by fishermen without a handicap? Or is it just going to be used the same amount? Or they still walk out there? That's,
I mean, if you were to go down there today and look at all the fishermen who are on the rocks and the people who are utilizing the Moby mat, I think it's kind of hard to determine whether they're tourists or they're fishermen or they're.
I know.
I think it's kind of hard to measure.
It's a lot of work. So it'll be an expense. I'm just trying to justify in my mind how I would vote on that. So just trying to.
I believe we can get grants for the construction of it as long as we do gear it towards the fishing community, because there are a lot of grants available for that.
Yeah.
Dylan just pointed out one, and I don't remember the name of it, sorry. And I know NOAA comes out with a fisheries grant every year. There is certain criteria that you have to meet to do so, which obviously we can meet that.
Okay. While we're on the discussion, I brought up, or I didn't bring it up, somebody in our meetings when we were talking about all this extending the jetty, and I spoke with Captain Dylan Hubbard about that. He had a ton of information about studies that have already been done, and I don't want that to drop without a discussion. So I don't know that now's the time, but I'd really like to know more about that.
I think we need to bring in the proper people for that discussion, because that is not a city asset. That is a federal asset
I
that is
agree.
maintained by the county. So we would need to make sure that we have all the information and all the people
Right, I
in the
would
room.
agree, but then we make a decision whether we want to pursue
Yeah,
federal.
before we
you
get
know.
too far down that path, I'll send the board the inlet management plan, and extending the jetty was alternative 6, and it didn't really say it would be helpful. No, I'm just saying, no offense, not trying to go against you or whatnot, but that's just what it actually says.
It wouldn't collect the sand from the renourishment north of us,
We're collecting the sand on our beach from the renourishment north of us right now.
but are we collecting it in the past? That's my question. Would that prevent-
I'm sure that a portion of it is being collected inside the pass, but we're also collecting it on our beach. So there's a lot of moving information for that. So I would like to, if we're gonna have that conversation, have all the right people in the
Yeah,
room to talk about
I'd
it.
love that. to just put
Yeah,
it out there.
I'll send out the inlet management plan, and commission can read it, and we can go from there.
Okay,
And I think
perfect.
there's
Thank you.
also, in addition to that one, there was one that the city, the county, and I believe Hubbard, was that in 2020? In 2020, we paid for a separate study, which also included talking about that as well. So I'm not sure if I don't think that's that one.
No,
right?
this was Dr. Wang from USF.
Yeah,
I
so
think
we'll
this is the one he
make sure
spearheaded.
you have both of them, and then to read over it, and then get in contact with all parties to see when we can bring them in.
That'd be wonderful.
But even if we put in this sidewalk, because it is a top of a federal asset, if Army Corps chooses to come in and do work on their federal asset, they will remove our sidewalk and they will not put it back. So that's already been talked about as well. And they don't have any direct plans within the next 5 years, but they couldn't give us any further than that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Then next on the agenda is parking garage. So I spoke with Chief today about this, and I wanted it on our agenda because there was a commission that raised parking And that raise of parking went into a fund, and the purpose of that fund was to build a parking garage down in Johns Pass. The original location was slated to be the parking lot at, it's 131st?
I believe so.
And we were, since I've been on this commission, we were told we couldn't build there because there's utilities that run through it and a beach access. What I would like us as a commission to do is start the conversation on building that parking garage and where we're going to build it. Getting the hard information on that lot of what utilities are there, what would that cost, can it be moved, what would it be? Or do we want to look at building a parking garage down on the south lot, which is where the restrooms are and the jetty is? We own those two lots. I've had a lot of conversation with business owners in Johns Pass, and they struggle with parking. They struggle with the private lots that are there that charge a enormous amount of money, and it changes, it's dynamic pricing. And I think that this is another one of those things that's just kind of been kicked down the road over and over and over. The money is there to start the parking garage. The ROI on the garage is going to pay for itself. So we obviously will, or most likely, I won't say obviously, most likely we'll have to take out a loan to build the parking garage. We don't have all of the money to build it, but we do have a substantial amount of money to get it started and to do something that will benefit the community as a whole. And so I wanted that to start today because we have not talked about it in quite some time. And I think that it's something that's heavy on the minds of the business owners and of the residents who go down to the pass. So we should, as a commission, make that a priority for discussion and what our next steps would be. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, I would love to speak on that, Captain Dylan Hubbard from Hubbard's Marina. If you look at any of the Johns Pass Village Google business pages, and I have the blessing of operating a few of them, it is overwhelming. 99% of comments and reviews are negative, and they are all relating to parking. City parking is, in my opinion, pretty nominal. I mean, $4 an hour in a high-volume tourist destination on the beach, it's understandable, in my opinion. The blight of Johns Pass are those private lots, specifically that dirt lot in the back. It does have dynamic pricing. They're very, very strategic. They put out signage that directs people in there. People show up there. They don't realize that it's a private lot. They don't realize the predatory pricing structure that they have. And they pay extra people to go out and flag cars into that lot. And countless times a day, you can watch cars pull in there. People get out, they walk to the pay machine, and they see $35, $45, $50, $75 to park. And they immediately get back in their car, leave negative reviews, and tell all their friends about how Johns Pass Village sucks. Don't go there. And it is killing Johns Pass, crippling business, and it is harmful to our city and our future. And we really need to do something about getting some clear signage like, hey, these are the city spaces, these are cheaper, this is cheaper options. The parking garage at Johns Pass, in my opinion, does a much better job at trying to match city pricing. It's a little bit more than city parking, but not by much. But their surface level area, they do try to make a premium in those surface level spots as well. But again, it's not as bad as the dynamic pricing and just straight up price gouging that happens in that dirt lot in the back. So I think there's some bad players that are giving Johns Pass a bad name. And I feel strongly that Johns Pass Village business owners are very adamantly in support of moving forward with this Johns Pass parking garage. A little bit of history, Johns Pass Village Association, back when it was still a thing, had a meeting. And the city came to that meeting and proposed to us raising parking for the city from $3.50 to $4. And the promise, the earmark, the guarantee was that that 50 cents increase was going to go to a fund to fund a parking garage specifically for Johns Pass. It was brought up at the last meeting that it is not earmarked specifically for a parking garage in Johns Pass. It's only earmarked for a parking garage. And that was severely detrimental to hear because in my opinion, and the opinion of all Johns Pass business owners, is that fund is specifically for a Johns Pass parking garage, which we desperately need. And we've been through different iterations, and I feel strongly that our previous city manager dropped the ball. I mean, we were pretty close to getting a development done and a parking garage built in that triangle area. But unfortunately, due to lack of follow-up and communication, city meetings happened and there wasn't the support there because no one knew about that meeting and no one was made aware. And I think we are now at a place where that specific area is going to be hard to redevelop because if the ball hadn't been dropped, if the communication was there, the biggest holdup to that triangle development was the VFW. They didn't want to close. And understandably, they don't want to shut their doors during construction. Well, they got knocked out by Helene. So behind Helene, we could have easily built that parking garage and then had a brand new VFW, and they would have been on board for that. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Now they're in the process of rebuilding, and they're spending money. So I guarantee they're not going to want to knock down their brand newly rebuilt VFW, right? So we've had the 133rd lot. That was in discussions. A feasibility study was done, and to my understanding, that lot is not feasible. You have a beautiful piece of property that the city already owns, and there's plenty of opportunity there to build a parking garage. And I have talked to other people that are smarter than me, and I think there's really smart ways that you could go about building a parking garage there. Multi-story, as tall as you can get it. You can make that area right turn only, so you have to approach from the north. You have to take a right into there. You have to park in that parking garage, and then exiting, people are like, well, we're going to have to send everybody to Treasure Island. No, you don't. Don't let them pull out there. Send them underneath the bridge. Underneath the bridge, cops use that parking or use that as a driveway all the time. And big, huge cop SUVs fit under there. There's plenty of overhead room. And currently, the district guy for FDOT, Justin, is a really, really good dude. And I think he'd be willing to have a conversation. And I think you have an opportunity to build that walkway or driveway into Johns Pass and let cars exit that way. So I think there's plenty of opportunities and there's a lot of positive benefit that could happen from moving forward with the parking garage development.
Thank you. Do we have any, thank you very much. Do we have any additional public comment?
Hi, Bob Bello, 13301 Gulf Lane. Just one thing, kind of piggybacking off what Dylan said, in regards to, the parking garage and the backlash from, tourists and what have you. I think something the city could do better is having signage, going from 150th down to Johns Pass, stating what the rates are for city spots. So this way they're aware of what is a reasonable rate to pay, being, $4 an hour, and they're not surprised to, pay $40. And I think that's something pretty simple that the city could do to, clean up our image a bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? So I would like to start with, because both they both spoke on the signage, and I shared with Chief today, one of the biggest conversations that I've had is about our signage for parking and how it doesn't work for most people. And if you don't really pay attention to it, you don't notice it, because I don't pay to park because I live here, so it doesn't pertain to me, and we're usually on our bicycle anyhow. So if you go down to Johns Pass and you look at the parking signs that we have, the logo on the top of the sign is about this big. It's about that big. So when you look at the parking sign, there's really nothing that jumps out and says this is city parking. And what I had asked and I shared with Chief is I took a picture of our signs, there's 2 of them, and put it into ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT if it would give me a better looking sign that would give better information and identify the city. And it is amazing what ChatGPT will do. So it comes back with this sign that right across the top says City of Madeira Beach Parking. It is clear that it is city parking. And I think it would be beneficial for the city, especially based off of the comments, because I see the comments on social media where people, they come and they park. I mean, there's some people that don't want to pay $4 an hour, but the majority of the comments are coming off of the private lots. And I can see when I go down and look at the private lot parking signage and look at our city signage, how someone would not recognize that they're different. They're not very different in how they look. So I am encouraging of our city staff to take a look at our signage and see if we couldn't do a better job at identifying our spots. And I agree with Bob, you know, making it more known what our fees are. There's 1 million parking signs in this city, and they mean nothing because they don't say anything that really tells you. It's just too much. And that's my opinion. So I'd love to see the city staff come back with something that would be more informational and would set us apart from those private lots. And previously I had brought up, couldn't we pass an ordinance that would require the city lots to do some additional signage that defines it as not a city lot? I think that would be really important too. Those are my opinions.
Mayor, regarding the signage, there's some of the private lots say public parking with a similar logo.
Correct.
So I think it's intentionally deceiving. Regarding the parking garage, if I were to vote today, I would say, yes, what are we waiting for?
Right.
We've been talking about this since Commissioner Kerr and I were elected 4 years ago. And I wondered where the conversation had gone. I want to continue this. I strongly want to continue this conversation. I think I'd like to know specifically, and I know with most of this information we can get right away, how much do we have saved? What approximate would be the approximate amount of the loan that would be necessary to get the project started? Let's confirm, I've heard it, don't think it can be used. Let's confirm that the 131st, it's 131st, not 133rd, right? It's 130.
It's 130.
Because if it's 133rd, it's at my house. So.
Oh, it's.
Confirm that 131st Street lot can't be used. Let's make sure of that. And then an approximation, maybe our building department can give us, I don't know, combined with parking. How many do we need? What do we need?
Well, we've never done a feasibility study on parking to know whether or not, to know what the number of parking spaces we need. So we do need a feasibility study on parking.
I think it's time we push the button and get going on this. I'm all about it, and I personally, you could talk me out of it because I thought the triangle was pretty good too. I think it's a great place at the tip there. We have all that property. We can incorporate nice bathrooms in there, and I think that would be a good location for us.
And
Vote today, I'd vote yes, build it.
Sorry, just to clarify, it is 130th.
130th.
130th, yeah. And secondly, while we were sitting here, Clara pulled up the resolutions regarding the parking, and it does say within 1/2 mile of Johns Pass Village, so it does at least define the area a little, and can't be anywhere. So I just want to clarify that.
We have two resolutions that state that. It's Resolution 2022-01 and 2022-02. One of them speaks to the 50 cent, but they both state the address that she's talking about.
Thank you very much, Clara. Comment?
Well, I definitely think the signage is very important for the city. The city parking, we need distinctive signage for our parking, set alone from the other private parking lots there. I think it's a great idea that we move forward with this as soon as we can, and we can get together and streamline it and move into that positive direction of building that parking garage, finding out how much, the loan will be, and then move forward with it. We have a great piece of property where we can put that parking garage at. So I'm all for it.
So Chief, could we have staff come back and present to us on both properties?
Yes.
And now my understanding is there was not a feasibility study done on the 130th. Not an official feasibility study.
Yeah, it wasn't an official feasibility study. I think that term was just used generally, and it was We can definitely research those properties.
Because I think that will give us, I mean, to understand what's on that property. I know there's utilities and all that run through it, and I've been a part of a lot of conversation, but I think the benefit for the board and for the community or the commission and the community to understand the differences of the two properties, what we could do at each property, what we would have to do if we wanted to build a parking garage on either property, because my understanding is there would be some constraints and things that we would need to do to build on either one. So if we could have that information come to us, and then we can discuss it and decide how to move forward, whether, I mean, once we chose the property, I would assume that we would want to do a feasibility study to determine how many parking spaces we wanted. And then I know you can build a parking garage so that if you build it today, 3 stories, but it could be a 5-story building, it can be built so that in the future, additional parking could be added if it was needed down the road. I mean, it's the only way we're going to get it moving forward.
No, we have to decide on which property it is. Personally, what I'll call the South Beach lot, I brought that up to some residents probably 3 or 4 years ago that helped me with my initial campaign and floated the idea, and you would have thought I was going to be run out of town on a rail, that we could not mess with their South Beach parking lot. So I never brought it up. It was good to hear that at least the merchants, the businesses in Johns Pass Village support the idea. I love the idea because you don't have to cross Gulf Boulevard as a pedestrian. You can walk right underneath the bridge, and we've brought it up before about vehicle access, so that if you're going to be traveling north, you go underneath the bridge and you travel north. If you're going to be going south, you go out the entrance off of Gulf Boulevard. But that's the first time I've heard anyone bring up the actual $4 an hour being on the sign, and I really like that. If we decide at some future date that we're going to change the fee, so be it. We absorb that cost. But it's an easy fix for the tourist that doesn't know, so that they don't see that sign with a published rate right on the sign. They're in the wrong spot. I don't care if it says public or whatnot, and we can restrict the signs. This is not city parking. That'd be wonderful too. So I think that was a great idea.
Mayor, I have a question possibly for a city attorney. Price gouging, that's called price gouging, right? Is that permissible?
There are prohibitions for price gouging during an emergency. But if you're asking me whether or not that they can charge $35 an hour versus our $4 an hour, if people want to pay it, and there's other available parking lots at $4 an hour, they can continue to do that. But it's not an emergency situation, and so the price gouging statutes don't apply.
So when we permitted this site to be parking, I'm sure there was a permit on this property, right, to do parking? Would you probably know that, right?
So you're asking about the flat lot and the permit that was issued for that?
Yes.
So currently, the flat lot is not permitted. It has a code enforcement on it.
Okay.
So
Here's the challenge in code enforcement. The state makes it very difficult for the city to enforce, which is terrible, because our residents often think, and our businesses think, that we don't enforce things. And I mean, we've talked about that up here. I mean, they can get fined every day, but if they're making more money than the fine, they don't really care.
And obviously, with the permit, the parts we would be able to control is some of the aspects of the lot, the signage on the lot, but obviously no way, shape, the pricing or anything like that. But those would have been the things that would have been looked at during the permitting process.
Mr. Trask, you said as long as people are willing to pay it and there are no other lots of, and there are other lots available, well, they change their pricing so that when there are no other lots available, they're raising their rates on holidays and whatnot, but that's there's no restriction to
Our code
that.
does not prohibit that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so we could write an ordinance that would prohibit that?
I haven't researched that, but I would think that we cannot regulate what they charge for
Right.
their lots. So I think that would, we get some kickback on that and probably get sued.
Anything additional? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I skipped the Madeira Beach City Manager brochure. So that would be next on the agenda.
All right, I was in touch with, or we've been in constant contact with Renee and the firm, or her firm. She is not here in person. She is logged in and is able to answer any questions anybody has. I reviewed the brochure. Megan Powers reviewed the brochure. We had no really big changes to this, so we're ready to move forward.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners?
Mayor, I looked over this brochure in detail, and I think that Renee's done a very good job of capturing the spirit of our city, the description. Who wouldn't want to work here if they read this? But just as important, I thought that the city manager's description was very much like what at least I described in my one face-to-face meeting with her. It's all very clear what we expect, and if we can get someone who checks off all those bullet points, I think we're gonna have someone really great leading our city. So I think this brochure is ready to go.
I think it looks great. My question is, I was kind of expecting to see what the actual contract would look like, because I wanted to have some input on.
Oh, we're going to negotiate that after we find someone we want to hire.
We don't have.
She's not going to write the contract.
There is one section on this where the first review of resumes will take place on blank, so.
Right, we have
when
to
you-
fill in a date.
When you make your motion, please include a date.
Yes, I saw that. Well, I was curious, did she have a date that she felt like she could hit?
No, the discussions we've had was that the holidays could possibly, slow this down a little bit, but we haven't talked about a specific date. It's just been a time frame, like February, March, April, May.
Oh, stop.
I'm just kidding.
So I think she needs to give us some direction.
Renee,
because-
are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so she can answer any questions.
Okay, so on the first review of resumes will take place on what date? What date do you feel comfortable that you would have the applicants to be able to submit to us for review?
I would like us to have a date no sooner than January 26th. That's a Monday. I always like to have it on a Monday because people have the weekend to get their stuff to me. And in Florida, a lot of candidates wait until the very end to apply because of open records and public records and what have you. But that gives us 6 weeks to really market this position and do quite a bit of outreach to have a great pool of candidates for you. So I would like to see January 26th. If for some reason that's a conflict or you want a different date, I would just suggest it be after that.
I mean, commission, does anyone have an issue with that date?
And that's fine.
No.
Do you have an issue with January 26th? I don't have an issue with that date. Hoosh?
No.
Nope. So, I mean, I thought the brochure was great. I agree with Commissioner Taglerini. It captured everything that I felt like was part of the conversation. So I'm excited for us to have January 26th show up.
So that's not, that's a Monday, so we're not interviewing that day, right? That's,
First review of resumes.
So would we have a official meeting, or would the resumes be emailed to us independently to read? How would that work?
You need to have a public
A
meeting.
public meeting.
Right.
if that's the
That's what I
case,
thought.
that date doesn't work for me.
Okay.
I work all that day.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry, if I may, that's the date where I begin to review resumes
Okay.
to
Oh,
see the
okay.
quality of candidates that we have.
Oh.
You will be getting a timeline from me shortly. You'll see that date on the calendar, but there'll also be a couple of other dates on there. Those are the dates where you will decide which candidates you would like to interview. And then the second date that's important will be the date you interview candidates. So this is just a date for me to get
Okay.
started
So
to
the
dig into
26th doesn't
resumes.
involve us.
That's correct.
Then
Thank
fine.
you.
And- Okay. Do we have any additional comments?
No comment, thank you.
So do we have a motion? Oh, no, we can't approve this. We're going to approve it the next one. Remember, whoever makes the motion, January 26th is our date in our next meeting. All right. Next on the agenda is chronic nuisance, Chapter 34, Article 7. This is on the agenda just to get the discussion started. I think we may need the city attorney to do some research. One of the problems that we've had post-Helene and Milton is chronic nuisance. And that is people who have chronically not done the things that they need to do under code enforcement. It could be anything from not repairing your property to grass to anything. And so when we were in discussion, I had a discussion with Marcy, and we were reading Chapter 34, Article 7, and we'd like for the city attorney to weigh in on this as to whether or not we can use this to motivate people for fining, for different things like that. And you don't have to answer it today, but we wanted to start the discussion. I know you weren't prepared because it wasn't an agenda item.
Yeah, I would have to read that. I mean, obviously, I remember the chronic nuisance ordinance because I was the one that drafted it, but that was a number of years ago, and it was for a different purpose back then. So I'm pulling it up right now. If you want to move on and give me a couple of minutes to read it real quick, then I'll
Okay.
be able to answer you.
Okay. Do we have any public comment? Marcy, do you have any input on it?
No, I think what we were kind of going through this, and what appealed to us was it seemed to give the city authority to do things on a property if the person that was not compliant wasn't adhering to it. But like we discussed, and to what Tom kind of alluded to, is it may not be particular to the situations that we're interested in resolving. And maybe if it's not, then maybe we address that too as well. Because I do feel like it's hard to continue to explain to the residents that our hands are tied to the extent that they are. And I know it's becoming more and more frustrating following the storm. And I know you guys get a lot of complaints about pools, grass, and properties that are in disrepair.
There's lots of rats in this town. I know more about rats than I ever thought I would.
I'm getting there.
Okay. I think my point on it is that I think staff needs more in their toolbox than what they have to be able to address the issues.
Let's see. Yeah, I think what you and I were looking at, it says like abatement by the city, and gives the city, it looks like an avenue by which we do certain things and then they get charged back. But like I said, to Tom's point, it may not be particular to what we're exactly
To what we
discussing.
want.
Okay, so this particular code provision does not do anything more than what your special magistrate code provision provides under your normal code violation cases. This doesn't give any priority. You'll remember that in Chapter 162 in our code relative to normal code enforcement actions, the special magistrate has the right to order abatement and also allow the city to recover those fees or those costs. But a chronic nuisance lien is on the same level as a special magistrate lien. They don't take priority over any other liens like tax liens or special assessments, and they fall in the same category as if it's a homesteaded property, you would not be able to foreclose them. So you don't gain anything by going through this longer process, because there is a longer process going through chronic nuisance to get to the same point. If it's actual abatement by the city that you want the ability to do that, you can use this, but what does that mean? Normally abatement is we send our lot mower out there to cut the grass. But most of these structures here that are damaged are not livable, they're kind of abandoned. Do we want to pay for demolition? And you may be $10,000 of property and demolition of a home. Do you want to go to that extent? Put a lien on the property and not be able to recover it? Because that's the bottom line, whether the lien is for demolition, grass cutting, special magistrate, chronic nuisance, it's all the same level of priority. So I know that some cities that we represent, the cities have a budget for demo. Tarpon Springs puts away, I think it was $15,000 a year that they use for demolition of properties, but that's right in their budget. And they do 1 or 2 demolitions and they're done for the year, because they've exhausted their budget. So it all depends on what you want to do. But the other option, obviously, is file a complaint for injunctive relief in circuit court and have a judge order them to do things. And if they don't do it, then they could be held in contempt of court and fined and jailed in a worst-case scenario.
So not recover the fines, under what circumstances would the city not be able to recover fines that were levied on a property when it sells?
So under the law, the lien never hits. So it's like it's floating above the property if it's homesteaded. If the homesteaded property sells, that lien never drops. It never hits the property. That doesn't mean that it doesn't hit any other non-homesteaded property. So for example, they own a home here, you have the lien on this property, and they own a vacant lot in Seminole. Well, that lien, once it was recorded, it hit that lot in Seminole. So you could foreclose that lien and you know, there. But most people, they don't have significant other assets or non-homesteaded property. So most of the time, we're unable to collect.
So that's what I thought, and we were discussing today. I thought that I had remembered you telling us that, or maybe it was just myself in a one-on-one conversation with you, that if a property was homesteaded, you couldn't collect. Even when it sold, you couldn't make them pay if it's a homesteaded property.
That's correct. That's the law, right?
So the benefit for the city is that, or for our benefit here today in this conversation, if we were to move forward with saying, okay, if you don't cut your grass, we're going to cut your grass. We're going to do it under the abatement. We're going to put a lien for the $100 it costs to cut your grass. You're not living in your house. It's rat infested. We're going to send out a crew and we're going to board the whole house up so that there's no ingress egress. The city could spend $1 or could spend $10,000. And if that's a homesteaded property, we may as well have just said with the money, because we're not going to get it back unless they own a piece of property someplace that is not homesteaded.
In Pinellas County.
In Pinellas County.
If
right.
we know that they own it in Pasco County, for example, we could record the lien there too, and then it would hit that property. But when we record it only in Pinellas, it only is Pinellas properties. But I think that we should also make it clear that there are some things that we do in the city, protect life and property. We spend money to do that. We're talking about one property in particular right now. that we have in Madeira Beach that I have suggested to the city manager that we go out and we board it up because it's a life safety issue.
Right.
We will more than likely not be able to recover that money, but we've protected the public. So there are some times we have to do that and we don't get our money.
I think that makes total sense. But for the conversation to understand if we could use that chapter or not. So,
Okay.
all right. Any questions? Anything?
Does that sort of fall under the 5A on community development?
The chronic
That-
nuisance?
The chronic nuisance with the non-conforming time
No.
restrictions?
That was,
Because
that was what I added just for discussion specifically about that. So next on the agenda is the property.
Okay. I'll take care of that. So, and thank you for putting it on the agenda because it is time sensitive. For a couple of the board may know, but I don't believe the entire board knows that property has become available on 150th, just behind the strip center where Guest Homes is. And I've been back there. I haven't spoken with the owner or anything, just through a third party. And that open space back there, it would be a fantastic, in my opinion, place to put the Public Works building and store the equipment there. It would, what we're trying to do at the new property at the marina and the existing property at the marina, and I know we just voted to move forward on that just a couple of weeks ago, but we didn't have this information at the time. They want to move, the owner wants, the way I understand it, they want to move quickly to sell that property. It was basically sold prior to the hurricane, and then that deal fell through. It has at least 2 different access points to be able to get to the property, possibly 3. It's bigger than the property that was allocated at the marina for Public Works. It's basically out of sight. It opens up, since we're going to develop that entire marina area, in my mind anyway, to put a full plan together for that property. But I wanted to bring it up, and hopefully not looking for a lot of discussion on it right now, just that keep an open mind. The chief is well-versed on, I mean, we have lots of questions yet to be answered, but to be able to speak with individual board members on a one-on-one basis and just present the information so that we can provide continue the discussion as soon as we get back in January, because we have no more meetings between now and then. But personally, if we can get that property, it's worth at least a discussion on.
Commissioner, do you have is there an address you can give us so we can
I
look
can
at
give
it
you,
or find it, or?
it is the property directly behind the old Jeff the Jeweler. There's 3 lots there. Do we have any public comment? So I will tell you, I had been approached by someone about this piece of property prior, and I deemed the property not useful for the city based off of the configuration, what the current owner wanted from the city in return. And I confirmed today with Megan the footprint of the building that has been designed for Public Works won't work on this property the way that the property is laid out. It's very narrow, and it would not, and there is not 2 entrances. The street that the Verizon currently uses is owned by Madeira Cove. And Madeira Cove owns that road. It's a private road. So the entrance would be off of 150th and would come up. It's a very, in my opinion, I think everybody should look at it. It is a very odd-shaped piece of property, and with the lease to Frontier, that property is not accessible because it's already leased out to someone. But the building that is being built for Public Works is a drive-through, and it's a drive-through for many purposes. But I've spent quite a bit of time over at the Public Works yard, and I feel like I have a very good understanding of the equipment that we have and how it's used and how it is loaded and offloaded. And I don't personally see how this property would work for our Public Works Department. That is my opinion, based off of, and I've been looking into this property for months. Since
So
October.
everyone's aware the address that I have is 217 150th.
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of parcels that go together on that.
He had it up on the screen.
Okay. Yeah, there's actually all three of those parcels together. Now, the one is leased out. You're absolutely right. I believe the lease agreement was being forwarded to the chief. Did you receive that?
I received the easement agreement from Frontier, but that was it.
Okay, if you need anything additional, I'm sure we can get that for you. But yeah, I mean, it's a much bigger piece of property than what's allocated for the marina, and I think as far as a drive-through, what I have here, I think that could be accommodated if that's important, or as what I have here is that the size and design of the original building is 135 feet by 55 feet. Is that correct? Yeah, I haven't done any measurements, but by just looking at the Pinellas County site, it looks like that would fit on there. I don't know. I just think it needs some consideration.
Vice Mayor Kerr, do we know how much that cost, the land?
Not yet.
Not yet, but I would encourage, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably worth maybe 5-10 minute discussion. So I am okay at least to, put it on the agenda to discuss this, maybe 5-10 minutes. It never hurts. Let's do some homework on that. Let's do some studies.
So moving forward, what I would do is I would have to set up one-on-ones because it couldn't be discussed up here without an agreement in place. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. Is that accurate?
You can do it, but you would blow your capability of getting a better deal. Once the public knows about the numbers that you're talking about, it's probably not beneficial to talk about it publicly. And that's the reason why most of these things are done by way of the city manager entering into an agreement and bringing it to you and discussing it to you once that agreement is there, contingent upon your approval, obviously, just like the last one. That's usually the way that it's done. But I would not suggest if you're going to make an offer that you all talk about it up here, but you can get the information directly with the acting city manager. And then if Commissioner Kerr, Vice Mayor, wants to put it on the agenda for discussion, you would have the ability to do that then. But I would just caution you because that drives up the price is the bottom line.
So what I'll do is I'll reach out, I'll set up one-on-ones to discuss, and then at the next meeting, you can provide direction.
I'm not against the discussion. I hope you didn't take that. That isn't what I meant.
Never hurts.
Right, I'm not against that. But that property, all three lots combined, including the rented piece, is 1.66 acres. So it is not bigger than the current Public Works. The usable space isn't, but that's for a conversation. I will welcome the one-on-one, Chief.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage the commission to look at this piece of property. I think there's value in this piece of property, and I would encourage a discussion on going forward with this also.
Any additional comments?
Thank
Okay, next is parking rate.
Yes, actually, I've been approached by some merchants and some residents in Johns Pass, or I'm sorry, Madeira Beach, to possibly do a lowering of our city parking rate in Johns Pass to $2.50 throughout the holiday season to encourage more shoppers to come in. Some local residents that do not live on Madeira Beach, but live in, say, Seminole, Largo, Clearwater, to come down and visit our city throughout the shopping season. So basically looking at, say, the next 90 days to lowering the price, and I would like to have a discussion about this.
Do we have any public comment?
I love the idea of lowering the rate and encouraging more visitors for however long a time frame you guys deem necessary or possible. But I really enjoyed the conversation earlier about some ordinances potentially coming from the commission to make it clear that private lot in the back is not public parking. It is a privately owned lot, and it has exponentially higher rates. I think that would be more beneficial, because if you lower the parking to $2.50, that's awesome, but getting that news out there is a little tricky. And then someone comes down to Johns Pass who doesn't know Johns Pass, they're going to get funneled right into that predatory lot, and they're never going to come back. And I think that is the biggest concern. While this is an awesome idea, and I appreciate the idea, and I love the city commission looking at ways to try to encourage people to visit Johns Pass, and I think it would be positive. My biggest concern is we all work really hard to get people down here. You guys sacrifice funding to get people to come down, only to end up in that private lot and never come back. So that would be my biggest concern, and I would encourage you guys to move forward with a discussion on passing some sort of ordinance to force signage changes at that private lot in the back. That is the biggest blight to Johns Pass by far. I understand Attorney Trask's comments about regulating their pricing, and I understand that you can't do that to private business, but I think there's ways that you could maybe handicap their ability to funnel traffic into their private lot by making them change their signs to make it clear that that is a privately owned lot. And then we could do outreach. Hey, the privately owned lots are more expensive, and then funnel them to that city parking, where the city makes more revenue. Johns Pass would make more revenue because people would be less turned off of visiting, for sure. While I appreciate the idea, I think we have a bigger problem that we need to address, for sure.
Thank you. Do you have any additional public comment? Commissioner? Oh.
Good afternoon. I'm Christina Pascuzzi. I think you all know where I live. I have to agree, you could make free, you could actually pay people to stay in your parking lot. It's not going to affect anything. What's happening to us is that private lot's just shooting us in the foot. It's a nice thought, nice gesture, but why don't we take that money and come up with some creative way, the parking money, instead of discounting it, take the money we got, come up with some creative way with a wonderful attorney that we can make sure we eliminate they're being exploited. The poor visitors are being exploited by that private lot. So that's my thoughts. Completely agree.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comment? Commission?
While it's a it's a great idea, I can't support it. I think it just creates more confusion than it would be beneficial. And I would agree we'd be losing the 50 cents per hour to fund the new parking during that 60-day period, 90-day period, whatever. We're going to need that funding. I don't think there's a lot of pushback on the $4 an hour. People want to come to the you're at the beach. You're going to pay for parking. I think that's reasonable. Let's expedite the signage and anything we can do to stop the predatory parking rates.
I had heard some complaints about parking cost in Archwell Park, not John's Pass. So if you would like to consider lowering the price per hour in Archwell Park, I would support that, but not John's Pass.
My concern is how do we get the word out in time? And I'm generally not opposed to, breaks over the holidays, but I just don't, we'd have to advertise somehow to let people know we got the cheap parking. And I definitely agree, because I've seen this problem with the private parking for many, many years. Let's put our energy into fixing that problem.
I agree. We would not even be able to vote on this until January because it's not on the agenda. So it's a great idea. I will say I had a conversation this week with a staff member who was talking about, had just in discussion on maybe doing like a Friday or a Saturday where it's free parking in the city lots. Come to John's Pass. From this to this, you can park for free. In the future, that might be a great way to help gin up business for the pass. I thought it was a cool idea, not mine, but a neat idea. I don't think we could do anything to parking because it would be January. But I agree we should focus on an ordinance and maybe new signage that would be better detailed for the residents and for the visitors. So if nothing more, then we'll move on to the next item, which is community development, non-conforming time restrictions. Marcy?
Good afternoon, Commission. We had brought this forward to discuss because our non-conforming code in general needs some attention. But the main thing in it that we caught, or that we were trying to focus on, was in 110-93. We have some time limitations. As we go through this, it's important to note that you can be non-conforming for 3 reasons. You can be non-conforming due to use that's no longer allowed. You can be non-conforming because your lot doesn't meet current requirements. And you can be non-conforming due to your structure possibly being within the setbacks and stuff like that. So you have three things going on. The one thing that we were concerned about as staff is in 110-93 2D, there's time limitations about you losing non-conforming use. The issue with this code is it interchanges use, structure, and land. It just kind of has mired it all together. So staff was concerned that the way it was worded, it would limit the time frame by which non-compliant homes, which means if they're not floodplain compliant and elevated, would lose the ability to rehabilitate their home through renovations within the 18-month period. But once we had drafted this up and had sent it to Tom for review, his most recent correspondence, and Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I know Joe had sent you the email. The 110, we have clauses in here that address involuntary loss and catastrophic loss. So if you lose your structure or have damage because of those, it kind of triggers a different set of rules. Both of those sections, or neither of those sections, have timeframes associated with them. So what we probably need at this point, based on our recent correspondence we have with Tom, is clarification on if the timeframes listed in 110-93 have any impact on how we interpret and enforce our recovery efforts in 110-95 and or 110-96. If the timeframes are not applicable in those 2 categories, then we have nothing to address here. But we've been going back and forth quite a bit, and just something most recently with the city attorney made us kind of wonder, just need clarification from him, to be quite honest. And like I said, we've been kind of going back and forth based on planning commission comments and then this. So as of like the last day or 2, we've got some comments that kind of needed some clarification from Tom, and he's just now hearing this. So in all fairness to him, as we were discussing it today. So our goal was to protect the residents such that if they were an at-grade structure and still interested in just repairing their home and moving back into it, we didn't want our code to prevent that from happening. So that was our biggest concern with touching this. And we have time. It would come up in March, so we don't have to solve it this evening, but we definitely need to get the discussion out there and make sure our code allows for the ability for homeowners to repair their homes. And I don't know, Tom, if you want to weigh in on the time constraints and how they're applicable to the sections.
So the question I was asked a couple of days ago was, are there time restrictions relative to Section 110-95? And that is the loss of use involuntarily. There is no time restriction on that, so you don't have to worry about 18 months or 365 days, however you're looking at it. And under 110-96, rebuilding after a catastrophic loss, there's no time requirement there either. So both of those will probably come into play relative to hurricane damaged homes. The 110-93-2, that's the provision of the code that basically says, hey, I've had this business, it's not a permitted use on the property, and I've had it for a number of years, and I've just decided I'm no longer going to run that business there, and and a year passes. Well, can that person start that business up again? Well, no, he cannot, because he voluntarily or she voluntarily stopped that non-conforming use. So there is a 365-day requirement there. Most cities have a 90 to 120-day provision. You have a 1-year provision, so which allows a lot of non-conforming uses to continue to exist. And the idea of your code provision relative to non-conforming uses is to force people to become in conformity with your code, not to allow them to continue to be non-conforming. So I hope that answers your question. Involuntary loss, catastrophic loss, whatever time it takes to rebuild, they don't lose that non-conformity.
So with that clarification from Tom, we do not have to discuss this right now. You will see the non-conforming come to you again, and that's going to be to better clarify use, structure, land, and better identify that. So the urgency with the time constraints does not exist based on this clarification. So we don't have to go down this rabbit hole right now.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Bob Bello, 13301 Gulf Lane. So thank you for that, because I had 2 pages I was going to have to talk really, really quick to get in my 5 minutes. So it's a moot point now. However, since we're bringing this up and we're looking at revising that, I don't know if you remember, maybe about 4 months back, I shared some stuff with the mayor in regards to nonconformities and some things I thought that would be helpful, and kind of touched on what I spoke about earlier about helping people to, rebuild and, encourage it. So I don't know if I need to resend that, if you might have it, I'll have to look, but if we could maybe get that in the hands of Marcy, I think it would be a great opportunity to try to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and, knock out some concerns I would have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comment? Commission? No? None?
In some instances, nonconformity can become conforming. If a project was permitted, let's say 100 years ago, and it's still standing, and it's not in conformance with today's code, we should still honor that. Now, if they tear the project down and want to rebuild it, that's another story. But if the building's been there for a long, long time, I would like to give the honor of the ownership to retain the property, the building.
Good. Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is Public Works interlocal agreement with Pinellas County for the designation of collection and removal responsibilities within geographic Pinellas County.
Good evening again,
Thank you,
Mayor and
Megan.
Commissioners. This is really just an item that we need to approve for Pinellas County in the event of a disaster. So this issues that we had during Helene was who was responsible for where, not really so much here in Madeira Beach, but in other areas within the county. But this just clearly defines what the county is responsible for and what the city is responsible for. So they're just asking that we approve the interlocal agreement.
Do we have any public comment? Commissioners?
After reading it, it seems very clear we need to approve it.
I believe we discussed this already.
I think we've had some discussion on something.
We've not
Not
had
this
an
specific one,
agreement on the responsibility. On the next topic, yes, we have.
Okay.
No comment.
Yeah, I read it and it makes total sense to me. Then next on the agenda is the interlocal agreement with Pinellas County for disaster debris and monitoring services.
This is again another item that is only in the event of a disaster. The county does the bidding process for us. There was an agreement that was done, I believe, in 2023 or 4, I don't believe. That is still in effect until 2028. The issue with that and the difference between the two is this allows market value to be changed, whereas in the other agreement, it does not. So we had that issue with the previous agreement, which is why our debris started a little bit slower because we were competing with Hillsborough and FDOT. So that's the only difference you see here.
Do we have any public comment? Commission?
No comment.
No comment.
Thank you, Megan. Then next on the agenda is Street Sweeping Services Sweeping Corp of America contract.
This is currently our street sweeping contractor that we've had for the previous year. 2025 was approved by the previous city manager, and there is a price increase, which is why it's coming back before you. I apologize on having the contract on the dais, but Attorney Trask does have some changes, so what we're asking is that we get the approval to proceed with the comments and changes as approved by Attorney Trask. And this is off the Sourcewell contract, which is a procurement that we use often.
Do we have any public comment?
Chuck Dillon, 529 Lillian. I didn't mean to be here for this, but yet the street sweeping, they do a lousy job. I mean, and it's just like they go down the streets 30 miles an hour and barely pick up anything. So I'm sorry, Megan, but like, it's just like, I don't think that we're getting our due as to whatever we're paying for them because they go fast as ever. Thank you.
Do we have any additional public comment? Commissioners?
Can I make a comment on that? Anytime it's been brought to my attention that the drivers have been driving too fast, I immediately reach out to the route supervisor and it's corrected. So I just need those phone calls to come to me.
I had no idea Mr. Dillon was coming up because I was going to say the same thing. And I walk around, ride my bikes, walk my dogs frequently, and right after they're done, they're kind of a mess still. I mean, I guess you're satisfied with it, but in my personal, my little neighborhood, they don't do a very good job, to be honest. I did not know Mr. Dillon was coming here today. That was my opinion. So I don't know. Do we have any? Have we looked at some other businesses, or what can we do? You say they fix it after you have a conversation with them. Well, we shouldn't have to keep having conversations with them.
I don't get many complaints about them, if I'm going to be completely honest. So if the complaints aren't brought to me, I'm not aware of the
Yeah, I've
the
never
issues.
complained to you directly.
So I need to be aware of the issues so that I can correct them, because I can tell you that they do pick up an enormous amount of debris. So sometimes they are driving a little bit too fast and it does get corrected. I get one resident who will send me their ring video, which works perfect, or I personally go out and I will watch them. So if I'm not aware of it, then I can't really correct it. Is there other companies out there? Yes, but this is just the company that we've been using, and we did use prior to owning a street sweeper. And the reason for not purchasing a street sweeper is the street sweepers are now over $400,000. And the life expectancy of a street sweeper is 5 to 6 years. So $400,000+ in 5 to 6 years, plus needing additional staff because we currently don't have that staff right now, it's a lot more of a hassle. And I understand contracting out a service, you don't get as good of a service as you would if you do it in-house, but it's more feasible for us to contract it out.
Thank you. I actually wasn't going to comment on the speed. I was going to just comment on the effectiveness. The streets don't seem clean.
So it depends on, so Boca Ciega neighborhood is pervious concrete, which is why there's that second additional regenerative air. So you have two different trucks that come out here. One truck is just the mechanical sweeper. And then the second truck, which only does the pervious, is the regenerative air because it's a vacuum.
Is it the same company?
It's the same company, just two different
Two
trucks.
different times?
Because we need a vacuum to clean the pervious.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Megan, is this a yearly contract that we do?
Yes.
And do they weigh, like when they get rid of the debris, they weigh it?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we can put them on notice that we are getting complaints and maybe start getting the data of how much they're picking up and maybe just let them know that, we've gotten some complaints and we can start looking at the data from what they're picking up and start reviewing that maybe a little bit if you want to.
Absolutely,
Just
we
a
can do
thought.
that, but we also have an enormous amount of construction sites. So in areas where they're tracking out a lot, and they're tracking out on the days whenever we're sweeping, or the mud and the curb line is 2 inches thick, the sweeper's not gonna pick that up. So it makes it really incredibly difficult to keep the streets clean when there's so much construction going on, just as a side note.
Do they cover the whole entire city?
They do, except for Gulf Boulevard and 150th, that's DOT. But sometimes they will do it, but that's not what we pay for.
Comments?
The contract's annual, as you stated.
Yes.
Is it coming up?
Yes, January 1st is whenever it's expiring.
So
Or the old price.
could we just put it out to bid and see if there's any competitive bid with maybe a cheaper price?
We can if you give the approval to go on a month-to-month basis, but I don't know that the pricing would be the same if we were to go month-to-month versus having a contract price. Because going out to bid is gonna be a couple-month process. So we can either not sweep for a couple months or pay a month-to-month, which I don't know what that fee would be.
So technically, we should have started this a couple months ago if we were planning on.
It was just brought to me that there was an increase.
I would be willing to move forward with them, with Ms. Forbes' suggestion, put them on notice. This might be the last year.
But what percentage is the increase?
It's $2,500 a month to only $2,725, so $225 a month increase.
I guess we can wait another 10 months.
So it's a $62,000 contract? $62,700 for 1 year?
No, $32,700 for 1 year. Currently, it's $30,000 a year.
Okay.
I also agree. I believe that we could put them on notice, and let them know that we're getting some complaints. And, obviously, this is a great contract for them as well. So definitely. And do you know when exactly their schedule is, when they?
Usually it's the first and the third week. First to second week is the whole city, and then the third week is the pervious, which is Boca Ciega, 137th, and portions of Gulf Lane.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anything?
Thank you.
One other thing you should know, this is not an annual contract. This is a 36-month contract with 2 one-year renewals. So it's up to 5 years possibly. So if you want to give direction on some other time period, then we would need to negotiate that. But so if you look at paragraph,
I think that's something that we need to correct in that, Tom, because when I reached out to them about that same question, they had their legal review, and their legal review said that the term, which was the 1-year term in the original contract, overrode that. So we can definitely make that change.
we would just needed to strike out the revision saying it's a 36-month term in paragraph number 3. And there are some other things that Megan and I have talked about that we need to change in this form agreement that they have. But I think that what we're just looking for is, so long as you're comfortable with the price amounts, allow me the opportunity to negotiate the terms of the contract, so long as the numbers are good to you. I just want to make sure that we don't take any other obligations. And there's one thing I'm really concerned about is that when they pick up our street debris. They dispose of it. They don't tell us where they dispose of it. It's not in the contract, but we still own it. So if it's hazardous in some way and they're placing it somewhere, that's our responsibility. So that's one of the things I want to address. There's a bunch of others, but as long as you're comfortable with the numbers, Megan and I and the contractor can work out the contract.
So in our next meeting, the motion would be to approve the
Subject to city
contract,
attorney's
subject
approval.
to you negotiating.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
I'm looking for.
I think that's,
Thank you.
so respond to public comments. We had three public comments prior to the meeting. The first one was to look at options to relax code for lifting, et cetera. There was some talk about PD for residential. I think that conversation that was given to us, if staff could dissect that and maybe come back with an opinion at a later meeting on that, I'd be happy to share what my thoughts were on it later. But I think it would be a good conversation to have and to be able to just have the conversation here at another meeting. And then when the second that we had was on the jetty and the tourism of the walkway and handicap fishing, I think that we're all committed to finding what we want to do there and moving forward with that, and then the coffee shop. So that was all that we had, if anyone has any other comments. If not, it is 5:56. We will reconvene at 6:10, and the meeting is adjourned.